is Totally 80s, the podcast dedicated to the music of the greatest decade ever. So, turn up your Walkman, loosen that scrunchie, and get ready to talk 80s with your host, Lyndsey Parker.
Hi, I'm Lyndsey Parker from Yahoo Entertainment and SiriusXM Volume, and this is another episode of Totally 80s. If this is your first time joining us, why not take a second to follow us at Totally 80s on Facebook or Instagram and email us your comments and show ideas to podcast@totally80s.com. You can also check us out on video as well, so go to our Totally 80s YouTube channel and check that out if you're so inclined. And joining me today, as always, is my partner in all things 80s, the other John Hughes.
Hi, Lyndsey. Do you know what I want?
What you want?
Do you know what I
ain't got? What I want, you can give me.
I don't know, but we'll find out today, right?
We will. I don't know what I want. And I think people might be able to sort of figure out what's going on. So, John, you and I are big fans of the original Monkees, right? I'm wearing my Monkees t-shirt. You've worked with them on their most recent record, Good Times, as well as the Christmas record. So it was 35 years ago, 1986, when the Monkees had their comeback, but their first comeback anyway. You could argue they've had several comebacks. That was when MTV played the marathon of all their episodes. And then it exploded, maybe in a way that MTV didn't expect it, maybe in the way that the original Monkees didn't expect. But they took full advantage. There was a reunion album. There was a huge tour. I'm wearing my reunion tour from the show they did at the Greek Theater that year. And Monkey Mania was at such an all-time high that led to the search for the new Monkees. That was what they wanted in 1986. And by 1987, the album came out. I'm holding it up now. It actually kind of looks like a Zoom. Actually, it's the four squares with their faces. So I'm really actually happy to sort of replicate this artwork by bringing them onto little squares onto this. Please welcome the new Monkees, Dino, Jared Chandler, Marty Ross, and Larry Saltis. I don't know if you're in the right order.
That works. Hey, guys.
Hi. Hey.
I'm trying on Zoom to replicate your album cover. This is my I'm holding up for people who are just listening to the audio, the original album. I bought it with my own money. You could see proof. There's a price tag I left. But let's go back to the year 1986. As I was saying, Monkey Mania was at fever pitch. There was the old Monkees were new again. So then there was this idea to create a new Monkees. A Monkees for the young kids, a Monkees for Generation X. A talent search was across the nation, and it led to the four of you. And it's amazing because all these years later, even though the new Monkees only released this one album, and there was only one season of the show, it has become this cult phenomenon. You're still all friends. You still reunite regularly in real life as well as on virtually here. And there's a real fan base for it that I think has grown over the years. So let's go back to the beginning about what made y'all want to audition for a show like this.
Hey, how about if the two most enthusiastic go first?
Can I guess who?
That would be John and Lyndsey.
I'm going to guess. Should I just ask Dino? You go.
There you go.
Thanks. I'm gonna do it clockwise in the order. So we're gonna start with Dino and then go around.
Oh, right on. What was the question? Because all I could hear was new Monkees, and I was like, wait a minute, they had new Monkees already?
How did you get involved? How did you find out about the audition?
My friend heard it on MTV. Of course, we didn't have cable at the time, so
the reason why I'm asking is because there are some people that probably thought this was a good idea. There are probably some people that thought it wasn't a good idea because it's hard to make lightning strike twice. But that was the idea, that this was
Lyndsey,
going to be. Mm-hmm.
There was a guy that thought it was a good idea. there was a lot of people that
it's me and John. Who else?
The four of us, we didn't know because they kept it as a bubble. Said, "Nah, everybody loves it. It's great. You guys are gonna do fine. You're gonna do fine."
You're with Columbia Pictures. You're on Warner Brother Records.
You got them making new Coca-Cola. What could go wrong with that?
I actually liked the new Coke, to be honest. I thought the new Coke was kind of tasty. But
they were also saying at one point that they were introducing us as the new Monkees, but we were going to have it then pick a band name.
And remember the haircuts and all that kind of silly stuff?
Yeah.
And
The
then it
haircuts.
and then it just never happened.
Well, that's actually a good point in that there are, I've talked about this before, we've seen the Jonas Brothers show. We've seen shows like Big Time Rush, whatever, in more recent years. History has been kinder to the New Monkees as we get distance from it. And there are fans that are still very excited about this. And we're going to get into all that. But at the time, it wasn't that well received. And do you think that if they had just said, from the creator of the Monkees, here's a new band and show that goes by this name, the Haircuts, let's say.
Now,
I like that. I like that.
How old were you,
No.
Lyndsey? Why weren't you phoning in and saying that?
I was years old.
You should have phoned in and suggested that. That's the creators.
That would have been I think a much better way of approaching the project.
Can I be serious and actually give you my theory on why I honestly think it didn't fly at the time? May I, fellas? If you think about it, when the Monkees were, they had the resurgence again on MTV, they got all these new 14-year-old fans, right? Mm-hmm. So now you have these 14-year-old fans, 15-year-old, whatever, that have found this new, in their eyes, they found a new band that, they loved and blah, 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 right? Well, now all of a sudden, these fans hear that there's going to be a new version of this band that they just discovered, right? Whereas if they would have waited, right? Let's say the Monkees had their resurgence, right? And then they kind of waited 2-3 years, right? By that time, sure, those fans would still hate us regardless, but at least it could have been a little bit more newer.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Because at that point, all these they've just created a new fan base, and here we were coming in going, "Hey, new fan base, check us out," and blah blah blah. Anyways, that's why I think you're onto something in the sense that if they would have waited a little bit longer, so that that fervor would die out a little bit, maybe we would have been accepted. But so I think they were wrong actually to actually create New Monkees at the time they did. They thought it was going to be a good idea.
You had the new Gidget. I mean, it was kind of
the new Munsters.
Yeah,
new Coke and new Coke, just like you mentioned, Lyndsey.
Well, it was a very, very 80s concept for that reason. A lot of old shows were being revisited and stuff, but it could have been even more 80s because is it true that Boogaloo Shrimp from Electric Boogaloo from Breakin' and Breakin' 2 was supposed to be a new Monkee? Is that true?
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, he was there.
Please say it's true, even if it's not. Please say it's true.
Can I tell you an intimate story about Boogaloo Shrimp?
Please.
And myself. So because I remember Marty at those auditions. I don't remember Larry. I remember.
Why not?
I remember. I remember you guys, but Boogaloo Shrimp. I remember remember when they were taking us and they were doing pairs and then 3 at a time and stuff like that.
And Jason Nesmith apparently auditioned as well.
He wasn't with us though.
Okay.
He wasn't with us.
Okay.
He's actually a Nesmith, so he wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
He was a Nesmith, so
Yeah,
right.
No, we're talking about
that'd be too intimidating.
The actual final screen test.
We'll go on then with the intimate story. I'm all ears.
Right. Well, at this point there were 9 of us, and I remember Boogaloo was right next to me, and we were watching, people doing their audition on the stage, on the Gidget stage, and all of a sudden, somebody walks behind me and taps me on the shoulder, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I look up, and it was this guy who was tall, and he had a pipe, right? And then he tapped me on the shoulder and he walked away. And all of a sudden Boogaloo goes crazy and he goes, "Dude, you're in. And I'm like, what the fuck? I have no idea what's going on. And he was like, "That guy, he's the man." And I'm like, how how do you know? And he goes, you're in. He was the first guy who told me that I was in, and that person was Steve Blauner, who tapped me on the shoulder. And
Blauner's List.
Blauner's List. And so, yeah, to me, and then later I found out that Boogaloo actually worked with Bob Rafelson because Bob Rafelson directed the Lionel Richie.
All Night Long? All Night Long? Bob Rafelson directed All Night Long? This is a fact I'm sad I did not.
All Night Long was produced by Bob Rafelson and directed by Michael Nesmith.
Nesmith, yes.
Whoa!
No way.
I had no idea. Wow, I'm going to win the next trivia pub quiz now. Thank you, guys. That is a fun fact.
And that's how I think Boogaloo kind of made his way into the auditions. I guess, yeah.
Let's get past the audition process. Although I do think that if someone wants to dig into it, there are some really fun things on YouTube, like MTV News going there. What is? Oh, you actually. For those of you who are not watching this on video, who are actually listening on audio, Marty has something that I need, which is a branded visor that says, I survived the new Monkees audition. You certainly did survive and thrive, but why? How did you get that? And why do you have, do you have any stories of surviving it, Marty?
Oh, I didn't mean to jump in with a prop. But,
I like a good prop comic. That's fine. So I actually mentioned that, this show did have a short run and, 13 episodes out of the 20. Are there 9 episodes that we haven't seen that are in the can?
This is one right now.
Okay, this is episode 23. But did you only shoot 13, or is there stuff that we haven't seen that's in the can?
Well, we only shot 12.
Oh.
And then the 13th one, they decided to do some voiceover trickery.
Yeah, they cut a bunch of clips from other episodes and just threw something together.
A clip show, as they call in the biz. It was a clip show.
Clip show for a half season show.
I think there's a couple shorts that we did that never made it to air because we did.
There's a lot of stuff like that, Jared.
There's a lot
of stuff where we did.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a really good point because I know, for instance, Dino, you had you were on Back Porch Video as a VJ back home before you were on the show, and there's a lot of comedy bits. Maybe you could say that in the new Monkees, maybe script wise it was lacking or whatever. Maybe you could say that some of the ideas didn't gel as 30-minute sitcom episodes, but there were a lot of sketches and kind of jokey segments that I think in some ways kind of predated YouTube stuff that's happening now and viral videos. And some of it was kind of sort of stuff that would later happen on basic cable, like cable access shows, that kind of kamikaze, scrappy comedy. Can you talk a little bit about some of the comedy on the show actually did work and actually was a little bit ahead of its time?
We really lowered the bar. You're correct.
Well, I'm saying what our market was, what we didn't really speak about because it wasn't really proper, is that our market was 14-year-olds that discovered pot.
That's a good market, man. Especially if you're the ads for fast food and stuff.
Right. I think we would have done better now, right?
Oh, it's a
kind
big
of
market now. When we were shooting the show, our 13 or 12 episodes, I know that by the end of the time that we had done those, we felt like we had done 21 or 22 episodes because of all the shoots that we had. We had, no matter what, even the little bits, those little bits take 5, 6, 7 hours just to do. And we had tons of stuff. We were working our asses off all the time for bits. It was actually much harder the way that we shot the show. A one camera setup with lots of different bits. I went out to a lake one day. I went out to a railroad yard one day. I went out to all these different places as they did all their different things, and those weren't even part of the collective show bit.
Yeah,
so
a lot of times
it was a difficult shoot to do. We all got sick while we were shooting the show, so there were episodes where we weren't appearing, one of us or more than one of us, and we had to get some extras or put masks on so that we could complete shots because we were all basically sick. And I remember Jared was famously quoted as saying that the doctor hadn't seen that kind of what was it? Jared hadn't seen
exhaustion.
This kind of since he worked in Korea War or Vietnam or something.
Oh,
So
man.
it was difficult. It was from inside. It was difficult.
And I remember telling him that I've never seen a doctor wear leather pants before.
Yeah.
He was wearing leather
Yeah,
pants.
no, I mean, if you
it was
figure
Dr. Feelgood.
and that whole time we were making the album as well.
Right. Well,
so we were pretty much burning the candle at both ends. I mean, I spent several weekends making short films. So it was like never had a day off. There was one point where I think I worked for like 6 weeks straight because I never had a day off.
Oh, they put Jared in on some horrible stuff where they made, I think more than anybody else, they made Jared do stop motion videos.
Yeah, I did that stop motion on the surfboard all over Los Angeles.
We did
every
stop motion as a band
for a month. And I mean, it was, oh my God, I just wanted to shoot myself.
So, I'm taking a positive spin on this, but of course at the time, as you say, there were maybe some people who thought this wasn't the greatest idea. It ended up, not being, definitely not being as successful as the original Monkees. It only lasted a few episodes or whatever. But was there a time when you were in the thick of it where you started to think it wasn't a good idea, or when you were in the middle of all this whirlwind of making I think like 33 music videos you did, all of these episodes, all these little shorts and romps, and making the album at the same time? Were you too close to it to realize that it was kind of like, sort of a doomed project at the time? Or how were you feeling? Were you optimistic this was going to be a lightning strike twice kind of moment?
I felt midway through shooting the season that it wasn't going to work out. I just thought the writing was...
Well, why didn't you tell me?
I think I did. I just felt like the writing was just not there. We had some opportunities to bring on some really good writers, and we didn't keep them. Like, All My Martys, that's a great episode. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything else was just so out of structure that you never got a chance to kind of get to know us and build that empathy that people have with characters that they want to watch every week. I think we flew right past that stage of love that you build with an audience.
Yeah, I think it was harder.
Weird,
I think it was harder on Larry.
Yeah,
I think the shit was all harder than Larry on any of it, because he was
all Larry's fault.
No, it's not his fault. It's just that he was the one that was like he was the one that was the spotlight of the show. I mean, he's the guy the girls were looking, he was the one. And when it started turning sour, it really it's just so weird that a lot of real a-holes would blame Larry on it more than anybody else. It's not working
Larry.
because it's Larry.
I blamed Larry. I blamed him all the time. It's like, why aren't you better looking, dude?
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the problem, obviously. But Larry, tell me a little bit about that. Is that how you felt at the time? Like that you were bearing the brunt of it?
Actually, quite honestly, the other guys were much smarter than I was. I wasn't looking too deeply into anything. I think it was like this wild ride, and I was following orders and doing what I should be doing. But at the same time, sort of like art imitated life. So whatever the show was doing, and whatever it wasn't, filling a hole in my heart on, I found in the other guys, to be quite honest. I think that's why we have this life, this friendship we have together. I call it a fellowship. We get together and we talk about the new Monkees. We don't ever get negative about it. We actually talk about the fun of it and the positive of it, because whatever we were going through, we may have all felt that it wasn't going to work out, but we also felt that this will never happen again. So you have that scale.
When I initially, about 4 years ago or so, when the anniversary of the new Monkees came up and I interviewed you guys for that anniversary, I remember being very surprised to find out that you guys were all friends, given the fact that it had happened a while ago and that this was a small moment in time. This was just like a pop culture, one season kind of thing. I kind of assumed you weren't in touch. I also kind of assumed maybe you'd not have bad blood against each other, but have a lot of negativity towards the show. And it was so wonderful when, I found out initially through Dino and then through the rest of you that not only did you, for the most part, have pretty fond memories of the show and no bitterness about it, but that you all were still friends and still hung out, still occasionally performed together. I mean, I think a lot of people would be surprised about that. Do you think it was the bond of the fact that there were a lot of people that were against the show, there was a core group of Monkees fans that were pretty animatedly against it, and yeah, they did that bond you even more?
Well, you have to remember, this is, if you go back to our show, was created by the people that created the Monkees. And the way that our show and the four of us were selected and the way that we were trained to do the show was exactly the same as they were. They knew that we were, personality-wise, we fit like a puzzle. We would be like, this is like the most expensive dating game ever done. because this is literally, we are four guys that get along with each other because one brings another that another doesn't bring, that this and that. We complete each other as a puzzle. So when we all see each other, it's like my wife said, God, when you guys are all in the same room, there's this electricity. It's like there's this thing that we have, the four of us. It's because we were trained. Sorry.
Monkey sound.
So,
Yeah, I mean, we spent a year together, just over a year, if you think about it, because we were selected.
And we lived with each other, really did.
I mean, we were selected, and it was almost 9 months before we ever went on the air. And during that time, we recorded demo songs, we wrote music, we were in acting classes for 5 days a week for months at a time with Bill Hudnut and Ed Greenberg, our comedy coaches. We spent a shit ton of time together. Marty and I lived together. Dino and Larry lived together. So, that's just a solid year of shared experience. So that's a big part of it.
And so what happened when the show started diving and all that stuff, we had, it was a terrible time, but it was a disappointing time. But when all the rubble cleared, we found that we said, well, it wasn't us. It wasn't our thing. Yeah. We were part of a machine that was the figurehead of a show, but we didn't really control it. We were doing what we were supposed to do. We were hired to do a show, and it didn't work. But, just because thousands wrote hate mail and, literally the hate mail was hidden from us. And because it was just so ubiquitous. The hate mail was piles and piles. And it was like, yeah, I got my 8 letters this week. I got 12 last week. I don't know if they like me or not. And it's like, well, you look in one place and you find that there's thousands of to the hate, to the, and that was something that we stuck together with. We said, well, screw them. We're doing our show, and what the hell,
Well, we were on a publicity tour. Remember we were driving from New York down to Philly or something. I forget the geography of it, but there were death threats on us if we entered New Jersey.
That's right. Yeah.
So we rolled all the windows down in the limousine when we pulled into New Jersey just to give them a clean shot. We were like, hey, fuck them.
That's usually the opposite.
It wasn't afraid of a 13-year-old girl with a sniper rifle, but
oh my God,
just the idea of it was ludicrous.
It's not often that you get somebody that requests a bulletproof limousine for TV show characters.
Wow. Well, before we get into a little bit more about that backlash and the sort of turnaround in the year since you were talking about how like Larry, supposedly bore more of the brunt as the heartthrob of the group. And also, Marty, you were talking about this casting where you all were pieces of a puzzle. Boy bands or bands like this are sort of cast that way. There's like the funny one, the cute one, the bad boy, the whatever. What were each of your archetypes? And also, you probably didn't get only hate mail. You got some fan letters too. Was there like, who was the popular one? Who was like, the John Taylor of the group or whatever? Okay, so no, but
Larry, obviously.
Okay, but what were all the archetypes within the new Monkees hierarchy?
Hey, Marty, would you come help and read my mail?
Well, I mean, I think I was definitely the bad boy, just on pure looks alone, and
I think I was the heartthrob.
And I didn't really, pardon the language, I didn't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
I didn't go to the open audition. I didn't seek it out. The producers, Matt and Vic, saw me in an improv class and told me they wanted me to screen test for it. And they said, it's the new Monkees, blah, blah, blah. And I said, wow, that's a horrible fucking idea. So it just made them want me more. But then on the surface, I looked at it, and the day of the auditions to go backwards, I realized it was a great opportunity and it was going to be a lot of fun. And we were going to do an album and have a TV show. And how often does a 19-year-old guy get that? So I jumped full bore in, but I think I was definitely probably the bad guy, the guy, the guy you didn't want your sister dating. I think that was my archetype.
And so then I guess we've all decided already that Larry was the cute one. There's usually a funny one.
No, that didn't work out at all.
I guess, well, it's kind of a contest for the funny one between Marty and Dino. I guess there could be two funny ones.
Well, here's the thing. Marty is and was really fucking funny. And
are we supposed to say fuck? How many times do you get on this? 3 times an hour?
Oh, I'm sorry. I started.
Okay.
That's my bad.
It's quite all right. It's the internet.
But I honestly think that they missed a great opportunity, because I was, looking at Marty now, Marty was hilarious when the cameras weren't running. So, because Marty wasn't, he wasn't like, he wasn't an actor in terms of like, okay, be funny, So it was like, I sort of blame either like directors or producers not knowing how to like capture that. Because I hit it off with Marty because he was just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I concur. I think that's very true. But
for some reason, when the cameras started rolling, it was like it wasn't the funny Marty. And there's some short films that's captured, like Funny Marty's captured, but the episodic part. You know what? The episodic part was always. It always left something desired.
That kilt was iconic, though. The kilt moment, fashion moment.
Yeah.
Where did the kilt come from? And was that your own kilt, or was that a stylist, provided kilt?
Larry, you want to answer that? No.
What was under the kilt?
That kilt came about because I have Scottish heritage, and they had a little questionnaire that they asked. That was the kind of the silly things that was that you had for the promo kits, and it just said, "What's your favorite thing to wear?" And I said a kilt. And about 3 days later, they had one made for me, and I was like, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, this is going to be your outfit." And I went, "Okay." So it was that simple.
And you killed
it. You love your legs. You have great legs.
I got great legs, and it was really nice. I didn't want to do the I did suggest for funniness that maybe we should redo the Marilyn Monroe dress flip with the kilt thing, but they thought maybe that was a little too much,
See, again it was a lost opportunity. That would have been freaking hilarious.
Well, back to the archetype question. Would you say that we thought at the time people were always trying to say who's Mike? Who's
comparisons,
100%. And I think I did that too. I think I said that Larry, you were the Davey.
Yes.
Dino that you were the Mickey because you were funny and you were the drummer.
Yes.
And who did I think Marty and Jared were? I guess
I was Ringo.
I would have said you probably were Mike Nesmith because you were the quietest one, and then I guess Marty, you're not quite a Peter Tork, but by default, I guess you got to be the Peter Tork. It was, but yeah, there was that sort of, maybe that was just the assumption because of the name New Monkees that you each were supposed to be the new version of that, which probably was the problem because my understanding is that the real Monkees or the original Monkees, they were not so on board with this whole idea.
No, they were not.
Is that fair to say?
I mean, we've since built a
relationship
with those guys, which is awesome.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
You were there I believe you were there when we played with Mickey, weren't you?
Yes. Okay. So, well, the first time. Okay. So, you guys, this was a moment in history. I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that I know that the original Monkees were not on board with this reboot in the first place. I know that Mickey Dolenz turned down an opportunity to be a part of the pilot. And there was some kind of
of
animosity, largely based on miscommunication or misunderstandings, and you guys could speak to that. But there was a magical day in August of 2018, I believe, maybe it was 2019, where Mickey, who does karaoke events for charity, where you can sing with Mickey Dolenz, and you and Marty, Dino, myself, my sister, and I got on stage and sang "Happy Birthday" to my sister because it was her birthday, and also my sister and I got to sing Tony Basil's "Hey Mickey" to Mickey, so that was awesome. But if I'm not mistaken, yes, if I'm not mistaken, that was like the first time that any new Monkees and original Monkees shared a stage together. That was obviously not an official debut of the hybrid, but you guys have since then performed together multiple times. I believe there's been olive branches extended, and I think ironically this all sort of started with a woman named Jody bringing you all together, who was like the most anti New Monkees person back in the day, and then now has become like the biggest New Monkees and Old Monkees ambassador. Can you tell me all about how that happened?
Well, there's been a lot of times I've played on stage with Mickey. In Chicago, I played a whole set with him. He's gone off stage and given me the band so that I can sing a song. I mean, it's gone a long way. But
you opened for him. You opened for him.
I opened for him, but more importantly, I'm on stage with his band and singing with him. The best part of the whole evening was the fact that this was just like all of a sudden, it was no big deal. It was just happening. It just happened. It was just like nothing ever happened. It was like, then after that door was opened so that Jody actually brought Mickey down to our reunion and came and just sat up on stage, and we did Monkey songs, and we did a Beatles song, and it was like no big thing. Although my hands were shaking pretty badly, I was like, I couldn't play very well. It was like I was just too nervous because I didn't want to fuck it up. I did it. Oh, I didn't want to mess it up. So in any case, that's been just such. Now it's like it's a great thing. I talked with Nez backstage at the Grammy show, and there's other stuff with Nesmith's, other Nesmith's things that are going on that I can't announce right now. But it's just really. It's really great for me since I'm playing. This was the thing that I automatically knew why Mickey couldn't, and the other guys in the original band couldn't possibly stand the name The New Monkees. The New Monkees was the worst name, not only for us, but it was even for them, it was bad. Mm-hmm. Because have you heard the New Monkees album?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Cool It.
Have you heard the New Monkees? Have you heard this? This is my New Monkees guitar.
Lyndsey, you're funny.
I just got this recently, so this is my New Monkees guitar. It really, how are they going to promote stuff?
Yeah, it's going to confuse the marketplace.
Oh, absolutely. So now that I'm fine with everything and everything's okay, and it's like it's all right.
Well, I do want to talk about the album because
I wanted to talk about that too, John. But just to put a bow on that conversation, have you you and Nesmith and Dolenz, have you? Given that there was a lot of, they were opposed to the idea of the New Monkees at the time. There was some bad blood. There was bad blood among their fan base. It's obviously you've cleared the air and put that to bed. But have you guys ever had a real conversation about that? About how, where either side has sort of been like, tell me about that.
I did. I did. And so is Dino. Dino had a conversation in Detroit about that. It's, or in Flint, wherever you go. The water's bad anywhere. But I remember Mickey's just saying, the name. It's just the name.
It was just the name.
Now, and unfortunately for a long while, it was the people, the actors, but now it's not the actors, but it's still not something that they're very, it's not something. He introduced me as one of the New Monkees in Chicago, and I didn't know where that was going. He's been on stage. He's done lots of film and TV music. He's been in this band. He's done this, and he's been and he was one of the New Monkees. And about 5 or 6 people in the audience went, "Woo!" And I went.
But no one booed or anything, or threw tomatoes, or rioted. No. It was like all love, right?
Absolutely.
That's good.
The fans were. I think it's gotten to the point where, at least they're civil. If the ones that don't like us or whatever, that's fine. I understand that completely. but we're still the new Monkees or new Monkees. And if we want to go out and play every once in a while and do it as that, that's fine. But the fans can come out and enjoy that as much as they want. I'm not asking for the original fans to like it. It's just, you don't have to be nasty about it. It would be such a nice Facebook world.
Facebook is don't expect much from Facebook, but I do think the tides have turned. And as John said, we do obviously want to talk about the record, which I have an original copy of. I'm holding it here, the self-titled New Monkees album. So, I mean, we sort of established that there were things that went wrong with the concept, or that, the scripts, the show wasn't as good as it could have been. But I do think this record holds up. Listen to it aside from the show, aside from the context or the baggage of whatever people, or the band name or whatever, and just listen to it and think this was a band called The Haircuts that put a record out in 1987, like a good power pop record. How do you guys feel about the music? Because I think the music, standing apart from all the rest, pretty much holds up. Yeah,
I think it's a great capsule into the 1980s, basically, because and it's cross genre in a way. I think it
I've
holds
always been curious about how much input you guys had into the recording, because you've got some, Marty's got the Wigs, is awesome power pop background. You guys have some bona fides, and there's some writing credits on the record from you guys. Just how much did you guys have influence on the recording?
I don't know if we were supposed to have much influence on the recording in the beginning. I think it evolved into more of a dynamic where we were more involved later on. Not to a big deal, but I think when we started recording the record, we didn't even have an identity yet. They were trying to figure it out as we flew into this thing. Thankfully, I think there were, what would you guys agree? Good songwriters, good producers. They had an idea and a vision, but I really don't think they knew what they were doing. They were going to throw something up against the wall, see if it stuck, and that's what you got. You ended up with a really good record. I believe what Jared said too. It's a time capsule in the 80s for sure, but it's standing the test of time because a lot of the songs are so well written they could probably be redone by many artists if they had the chance. It's just. I think the music became more important than the show. This show where we were telling you about where the show lacked, the record didn't. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think New Monkees fans latch on to the New Monkees for the music. When we go and perform together, they want to hear the songs. I don't know if they care if I talk at all. They really want to just hear the music. So that's the fun of it.
Yeah, I think it'd be a disservice to not say that Marty and Larry really provided a lot of musical leadership, because I think we got to the album because of all the time we spent recording and writing a bunch of the demos that the record company didn't want to use. Yeah. But I think that we did kind of find our harmony in that process at SIR, because I still have some of those recordings, and sort of like our voices, and our the way we sang together is in those demos, and that's what carries over to the album. And really musically, Marty and Larry were the driving force. And when we did get involved really creatively with the album process, where we had a voice, it was because of those two guys pushing it through and having the musical chops to communicate that. So yeah, I really felt like I was along for the ride with those guys, kind of pushing for us. So
I think that what's interesting, I just thought of this, and this is very interesting, is that when we played as a band, we sounded much more like the original Monkees did, sounding like they sounded as a garage band. We were like how we sounded. And the record company wanted us to be a slick band and a recorded band, and that's what they thought we should be because it was a TV show about a band.
Yeah.
And I remember a long time, I remember thinking, well, Roberta Peterson, who was an A&R person who's passed away since then, R.I.P. Roberta, but she told me when she first got the rushes of the first 2 episodes, she called me up and she said, damn it. I'm going, what? She said, we really tried on this album. We really wanted you guys to, this is what we really tried. And you can kind of see the effort put into the album versus the show. And you don't see inequality there.
That was what I wanted to ask you guys, because it really did seem like Warner Brothers was behind this record. It wasn't just like, oh, we got to do this. We made a deal with Columbia, whatever. It seemed like they really tried, and you guys actually got some radio ads and airplay for that.
John, they forecasted 3 million sales.
Wow.
I think we did 60,000 or something, 65, 70,000, something like that.
Ouch.
Maybe it was I think they
by today's standards, that's a success.
Wow.
I think that would be great.
They pressed 300,000. They pressed a lot of them. That's why you can see a lot of them as promotional records.
I had a cutout. So
I do.
Yeah. It's hard to find here's one of the few records that is more valuable as the actual not pushed out one.
What you just said, Roberta said to you, is key. Because it seems like after, and that's what I always thought. I always thought Columbia was waiting for Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is waiting for Columbia. As soon as Warner Brothers saw that, the show wasn't what it's supposed to be, I don't think they cared. And plus they had George Harrison.
Oh no, can I go on a sidebar with that story? That's just hilarious. I was asked to go and do some demos for the album and some of my own material. And so I go in with this guy named Chopin, who was a nice guy, and he did my demos. We did 3 or 4 songs, and I said, I don't want them to be finished because they're just demos. I don't have enough time to record them. It's 4 or 5, maybe 3, 4 or 5 songs. And I had the cassette, and Roberta called me, bothering me all the time. Do you have the songs? I need to get these songs in. And I went, well, I only have just really, really rough stuff. It's not really presentable. Just bring it in. I'm an A&R person. I know what I'm talking about. So I go into Warner Brothers. I go into our office. And I go, here's the thing. And right as I said this, there's a thing that says, Lenny's ready. And she goes, oh, I've got this. I'm meeting Lenny right now. I'll take the cassette in. You come with. And then, no. Lenny Walker, the president of Warner Brothers Music. I said, no, this is not something he's supposed to hear. This is just between you and me. He said, no, he'll like it. It's going to be great. You're fine. I go in and sit in, and Lenny Walker's got this office that has these twin towering speakers left and right behind his desk. And I sit down, and as they're talking about something or other, as he turns around to put the cassette, I look to my right, and there's an 8x10 of George Harrison. I look to my left, there's Prince. I looked over here, there's George Harrison. I'm looking like this Brian Wilson. I'm looking at all these people, and I'm going, oh no, I'm in the lair. This is what I've wanted all my life. This is it. And these crappy songs are going to be. He turns around, he plays the first song, which is awful. It's an awful song. It's just the structure of it. And he turns it off after the first song, and he turns around in his chair and he goes, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Was that good or bad? Was that bad?
Was the last time I met with Lenny.
Damn it. Well,
so it's just always, hey, kids out there, if you're watching this for any reason, never play the bad stuff. Never play your demo. Play the finished stuff. Isn't that right, Larry?
Is there stuff that you recorded for this album? Because you said, you worked at SIR for so long. Like, is there stuff in the can that you think is worthy of coming out? Like, is like kind of out, bonus tracks?
Larry and I worked on an album together that was Larry Saltis' first solo album, and we worked on it to the extent that I flew to Ohio and recorded in his friend's studio. We recorded about 4 or 5 songs. I have the master tape right in that room. I still have the masters, Larry. I don't know what they sound like, but those are
crap.
No, they were. They would be useful to. I think they might be worthwhile. And I've got other songs that are right from the period that were extra songs that I recorded with Steve Barry, who produced Boy Inside the Man, and there's tons. There's a few songs that are out there, but.
Well, let's revisit this album because, like I say, I think it holds up, and I think we're all in agreement that even that it's perhaps a better artifact to of the new Monkees phenomenon than the series itself. So, have you ever noticed that
available on streaming? It's finally available digitally.
Is it? Oh, it's awesome. I got the vinyl, but it's good to know you can stream it now. Have you ever noticed? I've pointed this out multiple times. When that song by Walk the Moon, "Shut Up and Dance" came out, it was like a monster hit about 5 years ago. That song sounds so much like what I want, like exactly like it. Exactly.
Just saying.
And you know what happened? Nobody believes you if you say, well, what was your influence? The new Monkees.
Do you know if it was? Because Walk the Moon, they love the 80s.
Yeah. If somebody's looking for something that's obscure but has on the face of it, nobody knows about it. Hey, let's lift from this.
Right. Yeah. Because it's new, because no one ever heard of it.
That actually would be almost punk rock if someone was like, so what are your influences? And the band was like, well, the new Monkees. That would be actually really cool. But I wouldn't blame them because, that's a great song. But some of the other songs that, for instance, one of my favorite songs on this album is I Don't Know. And it's also one of the best parts of the series because the Del Rubio triplets are in the show with you. I don't know how that came about, but if the Del Rubio triplets for a moment were definitely like cult heroes of the 80s. And I like Carlene. Sorry. I like Carlene a lot. I like Corner of My Eye. What are the songs that stand out to you as being like, if someone doesn't know about the new Monkees, as Marty just said, a lot of people, as Dino just said, a lot of people don't know. What would be the songs you'd say, check this one out? Here,
Turn it up.
Turn it up. The one you sang lead on. Okay.
Don't tell me I'm crazy. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Everybody's invited. So don't make me wait too long. Let the music thunder. Don't turn it down. Turn it up. Turn it up.
Lyndsey, I'm a little disappointed. That wasn't on your list.
Because I was reading the sequence in order, and it's the last track on side B.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
It barely got on.
I was saving the best for last. But actually, was that the only song you sang lead on? Because it was the theme song to the show at the very beginning. Yeah, it's one of the few things you had lead vocals on, Dino, right?
Yeah, that was a mistake.
No, it wasn't. No, that wasn't at all. They didn't know he could sing, and they gave him a song to sing, and he went and did the demo. And the demo came back, and Blauner asked me into his office, and I said, "What?" He said, "Listen to this," and he goes, "Let the music thunder, don't turn it down." And I'm listening to this, and I'm going, "Oh." And he goes, "That's Dino." I go, "That's Dino?" He says, "Yeah, he can sing his ass off." You guys, and I went, "Oh." He said, "Yeah." And so it was like, there it was. They didn't realize that how good he could sing. And he's got a real bluesy, he's got a Detroit influence kind of bluesy white guy vocal. He really does. He can really sing it.
Did you guys actually ever play any live shows back in the 80s?
Yeah.
We got up there a couple times together in places. Marty was still playing with the Wigs during the whole pre-production process. And I remember a couple of times when we got up there with the Wigs, and that was kind of a weird deal because it was almost like Warner Brothers had stolen Marty from the Wigs. But
there was a confusion between.
It was a little bit of a weird time. And then Dino, you and I remember we played down at that rockabilly gig in San Diego. You came down to North County, and we played with my old band. And
me and Berniak came down,
like here and there. And then when the show ended too, Larry and Dino and I used to jam in my garage because I had bought my girlfriend a drum kit. She never played it after about a month. So I was like, Dino, I've got a kit for you.
I was always curious if there was like a
tour
taken off. Was there like plans for a tour and for you guys to actually get out there? Or
before the show was over, there was talk of us touring, but
we were like a bar band, but we just didn't bring our gear.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any kind of like one live show, maybe something for like a premiere party or to film for a music video ever? Was there ever a time when the new Monkees, billed as such, did a proper concert, even if it was just like a one-off thing? I'm talking back in the day. I know you've performed together, in multiple times since.
Actually, to tell you the honest truth, we didn't have time.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
In
very
order
true.
to do that, we'd have to rehearse for a show. We'd have to get a crew and lighting, this and that, PA, get a crew together to do that. We just it wasn't in our capacity at that time to just go somewhere and jam. It wasn't like that. When we jammed between the takes of the videos that we were doing.
Yeah.
And honestly,
we did do a
we
lot
did
of
that quite a
that's for
bit.
sure.
Remember
Yeah.
when we were playing at the Beverly Theater, we played songs in between.
That's right.
We did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like as long as we're here, let's have a concert.
Well, going back to this album, just to round out that question, because I was asking about specific tracks. The boy, you mentioned "The Boy Inside the Man," which was a Tom Cochrane song, and I think that was one of with Marty singing lead, and there was also like an acoustic video for the song that was, or semi-acoustic, in like the warehouse that's from the show. That was, I think, at the time, one of the better received musical moments of the show, one that got a lot of like critically good attention at the time. Can you tell me about the decision to do that song on the show and to do it with that kind of arrangement, which was definitely a little darker and more serious than other songs on the show?
Okay. I was at Warner Brothers one day with Roberta, walked out of the place, and Matt Fassberg had an orange VW Beetle convertible. I always knew where he was coming because it was an orange VW Beetle. And he drove around and went like this, "Marty!" And I went, "What?" "You got to get in the car and listen to this song." And I went, okay. He put in the cassette of Tom Cochrane singing "Boy Inside the Man." And I listened to it and I went, okay, this is a pretty cool song. He says, "I want you to do this on the album." So if you want to trace it back to whoever wanted to do that, it was Matt Fassberg, and that was his decision. He wanted, apparently the producers were vying for cuts on the album and playing them either to Larry or Jared or Dino or I and saying, "You guys want to do this one, do this one." I remember, so I decided that I wanted to do "Boy Inside the Man." As a side note to that, with Roberta Peterson, as I was living in my apartment, she would send me songs via Messenger every single day. And cassettes and cassettes and cassettes. What was really strange, one day I put in the cassette and it was the Wigs doing Affection. And I called her up and I said, "What's with this song?" I was going to just play it and see, what's happening. She said, "Oh, that song, we love it. The songwriter's with us at Warner Brothers right now, but we don't know what we're up with an agreement. We don't know. Do you think you could do that song?" I said, "Yeah, that's me, Roberta." I think I can handle it.
Amazing.
So what was really great about "Boy Inside the Man" was actually going in to record it, and going back in to record "Boy Inside the Man" was done with a guy named Tony Peluso and Steve Barry. Tony Peluso, first of all, was the guy that was a guitar player with the Carpenters, and I loved the vocals of the Carpenters. He never got really to play. He's only like one song where he's got a lead, but it's like being the guitar player for an organ-based band. But Steve Barry was the guy that was P.F. Sloan's partner and created so many great so many great songs. If you look up P.F. Sloan and Steve Barry, you'll go, "Oh my God, they wrote those songs." And this guy I knew of, and I'm going, "Oh boy, Steve Barry." I walked in and did the vocal, and I sang, "I Dreamed." He sang the song, and I said, "Okay, well, all right." He said, "I think that's good." And he looked, and Tony Peluso looked at me and said, what a fucking one-take wonder you are, man. Who are you?" And I went, "Are you serious?" He says, "Yeah, that's it. I think that there's nothing else to do." So I was experiencing this time I was going to spend with these two guys. I walked in and they said, "That's good, thank you." And I went and left. And I think the legend of the song was that it was a one-take thing. And that's probably one of my biggest, most proudful moments of my career, is that I was able to go in under that auspices after doing a whole TV show all day long, going in at like 9:30, 10 o'clock exhausted, and singing that song in one take. I know right now that I'd be in the hospital for a week if I did the same thing.
I'm looking at some of the writing credits on here. John
Yeah.
Parr, is that the St. Elmo's Fire? John Parr,
Yeah.
the man in motion himself.
There's a lot of those on that. There's a lot of guys. There's the Tower Power horns on those, which were on Dino's song, and there's a guy from the band on there. It's an incredible. Fred Tackett's the harmonic, the mandolin player. If you take
Dan
a look
Huff, Dan Huff.
Oh,
Yeah.
big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? We kind of skimmed over. John was going to do this awesome little bit about the album being released. I kind of want to hear that.
Oh, okay.
It's finally on streaming services, and it's available digitally as well if you want to download it, if you're still doing that. But that was a long time coming, and we're still trying to work on some other stuff with the TV show problem.
It's okay. That doesn't matter. The album is what counts.
I don't care about the show so much, but those videos, you've got 33 separate presentations, and that's what's in the masters.
Yep.
It'll be a visual album like Beyonce's Lemonade. Just like that.
Just like that.
That's what was always the cool part of the show for me, were all the little short films and the little vignettes that we did. Those were, I think those were actually the really great part of the show. Well, to put to sort of bring it full circle and end this, what is each of you your favorite memory of working on this show? It could be something that happened in the studio while working on the record, or it could be an on-set memory, or it could be a memory that happened in the hotel room when you were, or at SIR. What's your one? We'll go around. Whoever wants to go first. What's your one fondest memory or craziest memory of being a new Monkee?
One of the funnest times, I just remember that gig when we shot the live stuff at the Beverly. It was just kind of, we had a silliness because we were just also happy to be there, sort of that time frame. And then I think not long after that, we were doing the video, the really cool black and white one for Carlane. And I really felt like we were solid as a group, we were definitely firing on all cylinders, and that was a cool feeling. I think that's my kind of standout.
For me, the thing it's twofold. One of which I remember, the memory I had was being in acting, the courses we used to take with Bill Hudnut. And I'm not an actor. I'm still not an actor. I'm terrible. So when I was in the room with these guys, though, I knew right then and I was in trouble, because it had to be, I played catch up the entire time. Not only with that, the other memory of being in the musical realm with all the guys, I never felt like I could ever catch up. So I knew right then and there, you're either gonna try to catch up or you're gonna get lost. It wasn't about being a heartthrob or anything like that. The best memory about the show was, you better bust your ass or you're not even gonna make a mark, because the guys you're with, you're never gonna catch up to. And the wit, and these guys are all very smart guys. To be witty, you got to be smart. And they're all very intelligent guys who can, on a dime, throw out a thought. And not that they're trying to be funny, but it just is, because it's so smart. So when it comes to the album, my favorite songs were ones that Marty sang. And I think it's because I knew I had to meet that mark. If I wanted to look at the show on the whole and look at what the show is about, it had to be about the other guys. I wanted to be like them. And that's honestly my favorite memory of all of it, was knowing that I had that mark to hit, never would get it. Now that I'm older and I can be doing something like this with these guys, or we get together, still haven't hit the mark, but we're family. So I'm like the misfit, the black sheep that one day is going to catch up if I'm allowed to. So it's a great deal.
Aw, that's a really nice. That's going to be tough to top, but Dino is wiping his eye. Dino is in tears. Dino, Marty, what are your fondest or craziest or funniest or just in general standout moment of the past of your new Monkees experience?
We were recording "Turn It Up," and the Monkees were at the same studio in the room next door. and we were taking a break, and I remember all of us walking in a line to go outside. It was for a cigarette break, but I didn't smoke, so I wanted to go and hang out with him. But as we were walking out, and this is a regret actually as well. It's memorable and it's a regret because as we were walking out, I remember Mickey and Peter were standing there in the it was like a hallway type thing. And as we were walking out, and I was jazzed, because I was, I'm singing the song. I just remember being hyped. Because I don't think I was doing drugs at that. Anyway, so I was hyped. And as I was walking past, I actually poked Peter in the stomach and I went, hoo-hoo-hoo, and I kept walking. And I remember him looking down at his stomach and kind of like, what the fuck, what was that, right? Mm-hmm. At the time, I didn't think I was being a smart. I don't know what it was. It was just a moment in time. But then I thought to myself, why? Our producers knew, they had to have known because, I remember them being at that studio. They had to have known that the Monkees were not. Why wasn't there like hey, you guys, this is I
introduction to smooth the air.
Exactly. Instead, I was a 20-year-old smartass who poked him in the stomach and did a Pillsbury Doughboy laugh, and so that was it was. I'm not apologizing. It is what it was, and that's what it was. But why wasn't that? Why they weren't smart enough to actually? They're not smart.
They were keeping you apart when a lot of the bad blood, which thankfully is behind you guys now, could have been avoided in the first place. But So yes. Marty, let's end with you. What was your moment, good or bad, crazy or funny, touching or weird, that stands out to you when you look back on this crazy journey?
It's the new Monkees. I mean, for crying out loud, it's the freaking new Monkees. I came out to Los Angeles to be signed. I got signed, and I ended up in this thing with a TV show. I worked for 3 or 4 years out in LA, got signed to the CBS Songs. I was a writer, this and that, playing in a band that could draw anywhere. The Wigs were doing really well. We did a movie. We did all, we were doing okay. We were kind of on our way. And then this show is kind of like, I thought, well, what the hell? I was asked if I wanted to do this, and I said no, and they gave me the job. And it was the same thing as Jared. The whole experience. I mean, there's an experience that when we were playing at the Beverly Theater, Bert Schneider was in the freaking lobby, scoping out the teenage girls coming off the bus. And there was there's Bob Rafelson directing us with Kylie as the star attraction, which was Larry's dog. I mean. And there's these moments that are there that are like really like legitimate things, and then there's these moments where I just feel just a sense of, wow, this is how the business works. I got so much crap in my bedroom from so many different places: Gibson, Fender, Takamine, Washburn, so all this stuff. And the week the show gets canceled, the guy that I helped bring out to Milwaukee and hired and get him a job had to come and get the gear from us so they could auction it off. And they didn't tell any of the four of us about any of the gear. And the stuff ends up at other guys' houses that worked for the show. Our gear. Stuff, I'm talking about Larry's personal guitar was auctioned off. So, but there you're sitting there and you're going, wow, that's what the machine is like. The switch was on, and then after that, it was off. I found out about getting, I guess the biggest thing that was for the whole show for me was finding out from a limo ride that the show had got canceled, and that the limo ride wasn't mine to pay for, wasn't the company's to pay for. And I got dropped off in front of the Federal building with my suitcase and got to hit a cab for the rest of the way home. That's how I
Holy cow. That is like something out of a TV show, or that doesn't seem like real.
or getting a Christmas basket with Dom Perignon. I was the only guy that was old enough to drink. So I got a bottle of Dom Perignon and a cheese basket from Warner Brothers for Christmas. And then I got my first paycheck and it was deducted.
I'm sorry. It was recoupable?
That is a recoupable expense. I'm sorry, Marty.
You know, the voice,
that's
the
right.
record executive speaks.
Yeah, the record guy is going to sit there and say.
Well, obviously it was the worst of times. It was the best of times, and it was.
No, I'm going to tell you, but I'll give
80s.
you one more. I'll give you one more. That's the best time, and the best time, and that because all of that stuff is just the business. The best time is right now, because the best time is that I'm still hanging with these guys, and we're still like together. We are the only four that know what it's like to be one of the new Monkees, and also to be branded as a Monkee by Rafelson, Schneider, and Blauter. We're the only ones that know what that kind of thing is. We escaped the success. We escaped the notoriety. We are the only ones that really just, it didn't work for the world, but it works for us. I got to have 3 really great friends. So right now, that's what it is.
To follow that up, I want to remind everybody that the new Monkees album is available on all streaming services and iTunes and wherever you can listen to music. Check it out. It is a really good record. And so if you have not been exposed to this music, you really need to.
And I think that the chemistry that we hear on this record, that, you know, even if it was an imperfect experience, that we definitely saw on the screen during those 13 episodes. We can see it here on the screen on my computer right now. So it was really, really fun to hang with you. I'm looking forward to whatever you guys do in the future. The fun is back. The fun never left. The fun never left. Turn it up. Turn up this podcast and enjoy. So thank you, Dino, Jared, Marty, and Larry. And of course, thank you, John Hughes. I'm Lyndsey Parker. I've been joined by this fabulous cast today. We want to thank everybody for listening. Remember to give us a rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll catch you next time. Turn it up.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Lyndsey. Thanks, Jeff.
This was Totally 80s, the podcast dedicated to the music of the greatest decade ever. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Totally 80s, and please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until our next episode, catch you on the flip side.